Hello YouTube world, Zach here. And today we're going to work on learning the beginnings of the PHP MyAdmin portal. There's a lot behind it, but even understanding a little bit about it will help immensely in increasing just the overall capabilities of your website and you personally on what you're able to do with computers. So, if you remember in our last video, we used the MySQL database selection right here, where my mouse is currently hovering. And we used the interface that cPanel provided to add users and a database. So we added a database and a user that was able to interact with the data inside the database. We used cPanel's really friendly user interface to do that, which is great to set up for the first time or set up on WordPress. Just to get things running and going. But it's limited. And when I say it's limited, I mean it lacks a lot of the automation that something like PHP MyAdmin presents you. And also, by using tools like this, like these really friendly interfaces, you lose a lot of the capabilities or a lot of the understanding behind how things interact and how the data works. So, without further ado, let's enter PHP MyAdmin. Okay, so basically, PHP MyAdmin is it's a SQL interface. So it's still an interface to make things easier. You're not directly interacting with the code in the way that we're not on the terminal typing in direct SQL commands. That being said, if you go and you press SQL right here, this is actually the SQL terminal. So you can press show databases. And when you press show databases, it shows me all my database, which you see right here. That was a direct SQL command that I could type in from the command prompt. That's what that is. That is a way to interface with the terminal. So you can do anything that the terminal allows you to do. That being said, it also gives you a way to look at it, an interface, so it's not just pure numbers and code on a black screen. It gives you some ways to interact with data, to compare data, to look at data, to visualize data mainly. So, if you remember last time we made our 𝚬𝚍𝚗𝚎𝚅 new DB database. Right now it's empty. But if we go up here to 𝚬𝚍𝚗𝚎𝚅, this is actually a database that has the WordPress data structure in it. So it has all the data, or the WordPress tables, which are each of these horizontal rows, and if you expand any one of these tables, you will see columns and indexes, and you can extend the columns to see all of the columns within this table of this database. And you can do that for each of the tables in the database. So the hierarchy is database is the overall biggest thing, then you have tables, and then within those tables you have columns. And that leads us to what if we want to create or add or insert our own data? What if we don't want to depend on WordPress? What if we want to get fancy? Well, the first thing we do is all we have to do is click on our empty database. So once we click on our database, given that it is empty, it presents us with this screen, and it says create your table. So I'll just give my table a name. I'll call it I don't know, Z table. And then it asks, how many numbers of columns would you like this Z table inside the 𝚬𝚍𝚗𝚎𝚅 new DB database to have? And that can be almost as many columns as you want. There is a number, but it's a pretty big number that most people don't reach. So, I mean, just pick whatever you want. Pick how many columns you want. And I'm going to go with 3. I want 3 columns. Okay, so I picked 3 columns, and due to picking 3 columns, I was presented 3 rows. These 3 rows are how I define what my column is, how my column interacts with the other columns with the data. And obviously the first thing we want to do is we want to give it a name. So I'll give my first column a name of ID. And then I will give it a length/value. And this is pretty cool. This is the length/value allows you to limit the size of the column. So if you have really big data sets and really big databases, because of those data sets, you want to really optimize based on the data type, and you want to limit the length of the data types. So you don't want to use, huge numbers if you can keep them small and you're not going to go over a certain threshold of size. So I'm just going to say 9. 9 digits in length. So that would be 99. So that would be what? That would be like if I wanted to write out, I don't know, 300,000, and okay, so then we'd have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So I will be able to get up to 999,000 values in my database. So I'm okay with that. 9 is the number of digits in the number, not the number itself. Okay, so now that's done. I'm going to actually skip the default, the collation, this is just the encoding type, basically how the computer reads the data based on how it's broken down, and that's like UTF-8, all that stuff. I'm going to skip that from now, and you can go and read about that if you want, but it's most of the time just use UTF-8. I'm not sure if I'm using UTF-8 in this or not, but UTF-8 is the most ubiquitous encoding or collation type. Then attributes and default I'll get into in the next video, and I'll also do null in the next video. But null is just, can there be null values inside this column, yes or no? Okay, so that's pretty self-explanatory if you understand what null is. And I'll also do index later on. So these answers I'll do later on. We don't need to know those right now. I want to keep this simple. So that leads us to AI, which is auto increment. Auto increment can only be used on a single column. And what it means is you are going to auto increment the ID value, meaning each time there's a new insert into the database, each time there's a new row, it will auto increment up a value. So it will basically count the number of rows. So when a new row is added, the ID automatically goes up 1 in that row. So it counts the number of rows. And then comments is if you're working with other people on the same database, you can make comments. Okay, so now let's say we want to do name and email. Okay, well now we need to pick our data type. There's varchar text date. Well, varchar and text would both technically work for name, but we want to use varchar. The reason we want to use varchar is because if you actually hover your mouse, you can see what each data type allows for as far as like size. And text and varchar use memory differently, meaning varchar uses a lot less memory, and since a name is normally not going to go over like 50 characters unless you have some crazy name, we can just use varchar, and then we can actually limit that varchar length in this option, the length/values. And we can do the same thing for email, varchar, and then we'll just say emails aren't going to be longer than 50 single digits. Varchar is adding together single digits, so we are saying it won't be longer. We are saying each name will not be longer than 50 single digits. So like a single digit would be like A, C, B. Each of those is a single digit. A is a single digit, B is a single digit, C is a single digit. A name will not be longer than 50 digits combined. 50 single digits combined. So I hope that made sense. Then all we need to do is we need to press save. Okay, sweet. Now, as you can see, where there was no table before under 𝚖𝚘𝚡 new DB, we now do have a table. And if we expand that table, you can see the 3 columns we added. You can also see the structure if you go over here. If you click on the database, you can click structure to see the structure of the database, and then you can click the table to see the structure of the given table. Now, right now, there are no values inside our columns, but we could start by inserting or importing data from another database. We could do a direct insert by using this operation, or we could even use a SQL insert. that allows us to insert the data programmatically. That being said, I'm going to save that for the next video, and I hope you learned how to create a MySQL database in the PHP MyAdmin. And I hope you learned a little bit about data types as well. Thank you very much. Like, subscribe, and tell me if you guys need any help.